It was a sad day in Lambeau when the Packers hosted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It sure seems like the season is over for the green and gold, but is there still a chance? We'll discuss that as well as recap the loss, complete with our listeners' thoughts about the game. All this and more coming up next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
Welcome and Go Pack Go. As you could probably tell, I'm not Wayne Henderson. In fact, I am David Newman from the Packers Fan Podcast community filling in for Wayne. And you're probably going to miss Wayne this week, not only just for his illustrious voice and his just overall just fantasticness of himself, but also for the fact that he's just a very positive guy. I don't know how positive he'll be after this one, but I'm pretty ticked off at Green Bay right now.
I feel your pain, David. Great to have you here, man. I just wish it were under better circumstances. Wayne has taken some much-needed R&R this week with his wife, but I'm happy to talk with Dr. Newman this week, who somehow made time to chat with me despite having a newborn baby girl at home. Congratulations again, man.
Thank you. I don't have the breast, so I'm not needed as much.
Well said. It's episode 290 of the Packers Fan Podcast, and this time around, we are excited to recap all the highs and lows from the loss to the Buccaneers, as well as sharing listener feedback as is tradition.
And then later, we'll preview next Sunday's Packers at Panthers matchup. And in a change of events, Scott has actually asked me to do the keys to a Packers victory over Carolina. We'll see what that's all about.
Well, let's talk about the highs. We got a few highs to talk about. Here's the stats from the game. These are the Packers leaders in the Buccaneers game. Passing, obviously, Jordan Love, 29 for 39, for 284 yards, 2 TDs, 0 interceptions, so not a bad showing by Mr. Love. The leading rusher was Aaron Jones. Welcome back, Mr. Jones. 13 carries for 53 yards. The leading receiver was Dontavion Wicks, who had 6 receptions for 97 yards. And Jonathan Owens coming up again on defense with 12 tackles, 7 of them being solo. So how are you feeling about those stats there, David?
I thought Jordan Love had kind of a rough start, but it really settled in, and I thought he did really well, given the circumstance. Obviously, his first drive and his last drives were probably his worst drives. Aaron Jones was nice to see. We saw what we're really missing for him, mostly on that first drive. I'll get into that a little later. Dontavion Wicks, man, that's looking like a really nice find in the 5th round for us.
Exactly.
And then Jonathan Owens, it's great to see him, getting a lot of tackles, but I'm going to be honest, I don't like seeing our leading tackler being a safety when you got 2 linebackers there that should be cleaning up the mess, and they just didn't play very well in my opinion. But go ahead.
I was also going to say you were talking about Aaron Jones, and this is him back. It was great to see him back there, and he was definitely making some progress. But this week, Dylan is out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I miss the two of them together so much. It just felt like we just had that back and forth. One would go in, the other would go in. It was just we had this solid running game going. And it's I'm not going to say it's been lackluster, but I feel like we're relying on the passing game again, which was my key to victory last week. It clearly didn't work out for us, but I just want to see us get back to the running game again, and we just can't do that if both of them aren't healthy each week.
Yeah, I think Dylan being in there would have been very helpful because as we saw, Aaron Jones had large chunks of time of not being in the game for whatever reason. I'm gonna get back to that a little bit later. But AJ Dillon would have been there. Patrick Taylor has served his purpose, but he's not a every down or large number of snaps kind of guy in the NFL. So
Agreed.
So first high would be we had a little bit of a rough start on the first defensive drive. I would say poor zone coverage, bad run defense. That seems to be a recurring theme in this game. But Green Bay was able to hold Tampa Bay to 3 points thanks to a sack by Kenny Clark on 3rd down.
Man.
Yeah, Kenny Clark with a big sack. And I got to give kudos to Rashawn Gary for forcing him into the pocket and really helping cause that sack. And obviously, of course, the coverage and that, because the coverage actually, I think they said they held it for what, 4 something seconds or something, something along those lines. And then, Tampa drew first blood with that 3-0 lead.
Yeah, and one of the lows that we're going to talk about was was when we had to bounce from behind, basically. But we were able to bounce from behind at least the beginning of the game with that fumble recovery inside the 5-yard line, because we go for it on 4th down and don't get it. But then we get this fumble recovery and basically give us another shot to do it. It happened toward the end of the first quarter. Baker Mayfield had his arm hit, and the ball went right into the hands of the defender who stripped it. It was kind of cool because there was a question about whether or not it was a pass or a fumble, just on first look at it. But at the end, it didn't matter because it never touched the ground. It was like he swatted it down and fell with it into his arms. It was great. Green Bay took over. 2 plays later, Tucker Kraft catches a pass from Love and runs it into the end zone. So the Packers were able to lead. I have 7-0. That's not correct, is it?
No, they were up 7-3 at that point.
7-3, yeah.
Yeah. So so Kingsley Enagbare was the one that had the strip sack. That guy. I think I looked over at Andy Herman's the Pro Football Focus. They give out their grades afterwards, and he had the highest grade on defense. He was in the backfield quite a bit, and then Tucker Kraft had a very nice. Dive into the end zone, jumping, with his head going over the top of the defender, not trying to actually hurdle him like he does later in the game. And
right.
And then, not a whole lot of high things going on for a while, but not until we get to the third quarter where they have a stellar drive. Lots of passing, good hurry up offense. For some reason, this team plays really well in up-tempo type of offense. I don't know if it's just the rhythm, the clicking is just going on. You would think that it wouldn't work as well because, you got a bunch of young players and everything, and they might not have those, not only the cadences, but the calls and everything that are at the line of scrimmage, but they've shown to be really effective when they have that up-tempo offense. Beautiful pass to Jaden Reed in the back of the end zone for a 17-yard touchdown and a great catch by Jaden Reed, getting both feet in at that time. They closed the gap. They were down 20-10 at that time, closed it down to 20-17. So,
yeah, I was really kind of thinking, because I was feeling down in the dumps by the second quarter, and I was like, okay, they're going to make something happen here, and it's going to turn around. But that kind of was the end of the positives, things that were going on outside of Anders Carlson, who was perfect on extra points and field goals today. So that guy has been getting a lot of flack this year, but he's missed some clutch kicks, but I still think he's solid. So
one other thing I do want to just mention quickly is that offense actually moved the ball pretty well. They had 1 3 and out today or yesterday. So it's nice to see them continuing to move the ball. It's not they're not just giving it right back, and you can't blame the offense for the defensive struggles in this game.
Exactly. Did you watch any of the press conferences or anything? I would be curious to hear what Jordan Love says about the loss.
I did not watch his press conference. I watched a little bit of Matt LaFleur because I was very curious. His press conferences kind of annoyed the crap out of me sometimes. But I didn't watch all of them. Not usually that kind of guy for some reason. But
yeah.
Well. Let's get into what's going to be the meat and potatoes of this episode, which is the lowlights, because there are a lot of them. As Scott already mentioned, we had to get a strip sack within the 5-yard line because on 4th and 2 we went for it down by the goal line and weren't able to get it. Ran the ball all the way down the field, and then on 4th down decided to pass it, which I actually don't think was I don't think it was a bad call. I think it was the right call. It was perfectly drawn up. It was just poorly executed by Jordan Love. I
just didn't like the call. Just get the 3 points, man. The game is tied.
That's fair.
Or would have been tied. I just don't understand. You don't have to be that aggressive that early on. I'm sound like a hypocrite because I want us to, come out the gate swinging and everything like that, but that was just too much of a risk.
I think the analytics say that going for it in that situation is the smart call, because even if you don't get it, the chances are they have to go 95 yards down the field, and that's very unlikely for it to happen. It is what it is. Some people are going to be like, take the points as they are. Some are like, I like the aggressiveness. I'm okay with the aggressiveness in certain situations. I think early on in the game where the game isn't not being decided quite yet by just how many points, you can go ahead and take it, or to take your chances when you can.
What does that even mean? The analytics say that's just like what people think. It's like a collective what people think. That I don't care what people think. I care what makes sense. And tying the game to not be having to come from behind or having that risk of doing that is what makes more sense in my head. But again, that's just what another person thinks, right?
I guess there's algorithms out there that say this, that, and this, that. But at the end of the day, it's all going to be, what is your opinion? What is your subjective thought on this? There's no objective data that says you have to go for it at 4th and 2, but it's quite the analytics NFL now. Yep.
Now it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, which is clearly the defense. This game was lost for us because of the defense. I don't even know where to begin, honestly, because there's just so many things that went wrong. Nothing went right on defense outside of the few positives we talked about, the sack on 3rd down and all that. But I'm going to let you take over here, David, because you got some great stuff here.
All right. So let me start with a stat that I saw. Baker Mayfield was 20 of 24 for 361 yards and 3 TDs against the zone. Not just in general, against the zone. He had 4 other passes in the game, which he was 2 for 4 for 20 yards and a touchdown against. One of them was a pass breakup by Carrington Valentine. I don't know what the other incompletion was. I don't know what the touchdown was or anything like that. So the Packers played zone 24 out of 28 times that the ball was actually thrown. They did have 3 sacks. I know one of them was in man coverage. I don't know what if the other 2 were, but 24 out of 28, 24-4. We talk about how we think the Packers on offense like to pass the ball much more than they run. Mm-hmm. Does not compare to this. 24 times. You're, what is that? 88%, something close to that, somewhere right. High 80s, low 90s. I think that was just terrible, and there was no adjustment to it whatsoever.
Yeah, that thing that drove me crazy was, what was it, like 3rd and 29?
Second and 29. Yep.
2nd and 29, and I'm like, okay, we just gotta keep them from getting within field goal range, and like this is no problem. And sure enough, does the zone again, like a soft zone. It's really frustrating, and we're gonna talk about Dom Capers quite a bit, I think, in our weekly poll question. But it's very frustrating. And here's the other thing that is extremely frustrating about this is, like, a record has been broken at Lambeau Field because of this game. Baker Mayfield not only had the stats that you had, he also had a perfect passer rating of 158.3. Perfect passer rating. He is the first opposing quarterback to ever achieve that feat at Lambeau Field. The only other person to do it at Lambeau Field was Aaron Rodgers. And we let Tampa Bay do it
with Baker Mayfield. I think it was absolutely shameful. And to be honest, I have this whole thing here that I'm about to read to you that I wrote yesterday.
Oh boy, okay. Buckle up, kids.
It's been 2 weeks in a row that I think LaFleur needs to be absolutely ashamed of himself. While last week it was mostly about the play calling, I actually think this week he actually called a pretty good game. I thought the offense played pretty well. However, I do think he needs to be ashamed of himself by how he continues to let Joe Barry take this defense and run it into the ground. He needs to be more involved with the defense here. He's so focused on the offense because he's calling the plays. He's calling, he is the offensive guy, and it makes sense. He should be a little bit more focused on the offense, but he needs to be more involved with this defense. I think he needs to give up play calling. again, not because he's a bad play caller. I think we've seen recently that he can do it, but he is just putting way too much emphasis on the offense.
He needs to be a head coach is what you're saying.
He needs to be a head coach. That's exactly it. Yeah. Joe Barry is clearly not the right defensive coordinator because he continues to allow average to below average quarterbacks look like Pro Bowlers. A 5-game stretch showed the potential of the defense, and my 5-game stretch was the Rams to the Chiefs. And even then, the Pittsburgh Steelers scored 23 points when they're not scoring a lot of points anyways. Mm-hmm. But these last 2 games have been really what this defense has been for the majority of the year. It would be one thing if this team didn't have talent, but it has so many first-rounders and guys with a lot of potential that it's just frustrating to watch them play the way they have the past 2 weeks. And people will argue they've had injuries, but they still have plenty of talent. They should overcome those if they called the right game plan. Joe Barry should not be the coordinator anymore, and they should just rip the Band-Aid off now. And I'm pretty upset that Matt LaFleur is going to stick with him probably till the end of the season at this point.
Yeah, like what's the point? Is that a morale thing? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, just gonna wait until the offseason to start the rebuilding process and just keep going with what we got? Is that even his call? Is that an upper management call? I legit don't know.
Yeah, I think he, has the majority of the say. There would have to be, a lot of backlash, or the upper offices would have to, I guess, approve it probably. But really, it's his staff. When you're the head coach, it's your staff. You should have control of who is on your staff. And Matt LaFleur said today that they are sticking with him. So at least till the end of the season, which to me is frustrating because if the defense plays great the next 3 weeks and they make the playoffs, we're going to have I'm afraid we're going to have the same issue going into next year where we hold on to him when he should have been fired at the end of the season.
So at this point, do you just hope they don't make the playoffs so that we can prove that he's the problem?
No, I don't. I don't. But I wish.
Wayne is yelling at his radio right now, listening to this wherever he is.
I would rather Green Bay win 45-38 every single game, so the defense looks like crap, but the offense looks great, and they make the playoffs. And then whatever happens, they make the playoffs. That's great. So
yeah. But I will say I've been a Joe Barry apologist since doing this show, or since he's been on the team. I'm done. I'm done after this. The freaking Buccaneers, man. I mean, we're not talking about Tom Brady era Buccaneers. We're talking Baker Mayfield. Had a perfect passer rating in Lambeau. It's just embarrassing. So yeah.
There's poor communication that goes on that defensive side, and that just starts with the coaches. The coaches are to blame on that. If you have one guy that isn't communicating very well, that's on the player. But when it's a whole team that's not doing it, that's on the coaching and everything. I can't just say it's all Joe Barry, at least on this game, because there are plenty of players that didn't step up, didn't play well. Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker didn't play well, in my opinion. Devondre Campbell, since his first season in Green Bay, looked great. The second season, now third season, he has looked slow, and he does not look like the guy that we should have been giving 5 years, $59 million to. And Quay Walker, we had other opportunities for linebacker at the spot that we took Quay Walker, and I'm very curious to see how those players would be in the spot that Quay Walker is. I think he has potential. Maybe it's the coaching again, but he hasn't looked like the player we hoped he would. At least so far, at least in the past few games, I would say.
I agree with you. We got another low light there too, man.
Yeah, I got one more. I think I got two, actually. Josh Myers, I don't think he played too well either today. He had a holding call, and he's got to snap the ball when there's players offsides. It's just, you just got to do it. You got to give your offense a chance to make a big play right there. And then last thing, this is more of a funny one, but Tucker Kraft, he needs to stay on his feet. When you're going out of bounds, don't try to hurtle over a guy. You got your nuts hit. Like, that just probably didn't feel very good for you. and you weren't going to get any extra yards out of it. Just stay on run into the guy or go out of bounds. Like just take what you got.
Yeah, that one I winced when I saw him try to hurdle that guy, and I looked like he took a shot, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on to our weekly poll question. This was posted in our Facebook group at PackersCommunity.com and on Twitter at Packers Fan Pod. And David actually supplied the question this week, which I thought was really great. He says, what is most important to you right now? The first option is making the playoffs. Second option is the higher draft pick. Third option is continued offensive growth. And the last option is firing Joe Barry. And for one of the first times since I've been doing this podcast, we did not have a write-in vote. So you had some good suggestions here. I don't have the exact numbers because I don't have access to them like Wayne does, but I can give you the overall idea of what's going on here. But where do you stand on this poll question?
I think my my earlier comments has probably alluded to that. I think firing Joe Barry is the most important to me. I want to bring up one more thing here about Joe Barry, since he has been the defensive coordinator here. The Packers have allowed career games in the last 2 years to these quarterbacks. Maybe not the best games ever they've had, but they are better than their average game. Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Bailey Zappi, Taylor Heineke, Ryan Tannehill, Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, Tommy DeVito, and now Baker Mayfield. That is 9 quarterbacks that are not in the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And they have given those guys the best games that they have played.
It's so hard because it's really difficult for me to not pick making the playoffs, because even though I don't think we'd make it very far, I still like to be able to say, hey, at least we made the playoffs. You know what I mean? But I'm thinking long term, and I think that there's such a potential for this team with as young as they are, and all they're going to do is grow. You know, as they start gelling together and the practices get more tight and things just start happening, they could be right back on top. You know what I mean? We could be, in for another 15-year awesome run of Packers football. So I think that's the bigger priority. So I'm gonna have to side with you and say firing Joe Barry, and that's a huge step for me, man. Because like I said, I've been such an apologist for him. So I'm definitely gonna go with that. So our community agreed with us wholeheartedly. I will say that nobody. Not a single person, at least on Facebook, picked a higher draft pick. I feel like that's kind of Packers fans think. We never think of going for the higher draft pick. We never say, play down so we can do that. We're not the Bears. You know what I mean? So that's not in the cards. The second lowest one was, believe it or not, making the playoffs. We had, I want to say, like 5% people said making the playoffs, which was shocking to me.
I think that was just Wayne that said that.
Yeah,
answer,
probably.
Yes.
And then we had, I don't know, about 10 or 15% said continued offensive growth, but everybody else said firing Joe Barry. So again, I apologize. I don't have the exact numbers, but we had some comments on this one for sure in the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook group. First one comes from Josh Steima. He says, Joe Barry should be sent down to Division III to figure out what he's even doing. End quote.
I think Dan Dyler responded to that. Why do you think that they need to be mean to the Division III players like that?
Yeah, that was a great comment too.
And speaking of Dan, he had his own thoughts about this. He said, have we not seen enough of Joe Barry's ineptitude? There have been some good games, but I believe that was due to raw player talent, not the scheme he drew up. The experiment has gone on long enough. I'd love to make the playoffs to give our young players the experience needed, but cutting Joe Barry loose is by far more important. The fact we brought on a defensive coordinator partly responsible for the Browns going 0-16 was a head scratcher already. But now it should be clear and obvious he's not the man for the job and should be fired immediately. Also, I don't know if he was the Browns one. I thought that was Pettin, but I could be wrong. Dan, let me know. But I know he, for a fact, was part of the 0-16 Detroit Lions back in 2008. So he was a part of at least one 0-16 team.
Okay, so yeah, either way, he was part of some team that did not win a single game the entire season. So, Dictus in the Netherlands chimed in and said, honest and more level-headed answer is more positive development. But by God, if Matt LaFleur doesn't fire Joe Barry, might as well fire Matt LaFleur as well. This team isn't going anywhere with Mr. Soft Cushion, bend and break on defensive coordinator. Man.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is bend and break is, you give up the, little short plays and everything throughout the, and make them have to beat you that way. They gave up chunk plays yesterday. They had I think over 8 explosive plays, probably more. Bad tackling involved as well, leading to like a 53-yarder by David Moore. Yeah, Dictus, I'm with you. I definitely want to see that offensive development, but I think Joe Barry's the right answer in my opinion. And Janelle Herron also said, I think the offense looked pretty good. Had a few sputtering drives, but for the most part, they look good. The defense scheme is horrible, though, and it's lost any chance of making it to the playoffs this year.
Is there no? I mean, to her point, if the defense keeps doing what it's doing, we don't have a chance for the playoffs. But we're not mathematically eliminated, right?
We actually still have, I think Andy Herman did these numbers. He's the Pack-A-Day podcast guy. I think they have, if they win out, they have a 42 to 72% chance of making the playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
And the Vikings losing obviously helped. There was actually quite a bit of teams that lost yesterday that really, really helped. Atlanta, oh, thank goodness. And I guess the Rams won. So you have the Rams, the Falcons, and the Vikings that are all ahead. The Seahawks play tonight. I got a feeling they'll lose this game, but it's the NFL. Anything could happen. So they're not mathematically out. Play your game, handle business, and you got a shot.
I just don't understand why we can beat teams like the Lions and the Chiefs back-to-back, games that I just assumed we were going to lose. And the games I assumed we were going to win, Tampa, Pittsburgh, why can't we win these must-win or should-win games? It just makes no sense. Bill Gardner says, I think the defense needs a change for sure, especially in the run game defense, but I'm not sure you should put it all on the Packers defense. They've held most teams to under points or even far less. The offense needs to connect and be in sync more consistently. There are way too many points left on the field in these winnable games. He's got a point to some degree, but I think the offense is looking pretty good this week. It wasn't perfect. It's far from perfect, but the offense wasn't the issue this week.
Well, if the defense had held them, to more 3-and-outs or, stopped them, they had one punt yesterday. One punt, one fumble. They scored on every other drive. Hey, you can't win games if your offense is not on the field that much because your defense is letting up drives that continue to eat clock. I get what Bill's saying about far less points than usual. I will say the defense, kept us into games from times. The Raiders game comes to mind. I think we're in that game in Denver mostly because the defense and the offense wasn't clicking then, but the offense is starting to click now, and they're starting to make some connections. They're not going to score on every drive. No team does. It just doesn't happen very often. But I thought the offense, they had one 3-and-out. I think they said on the broadcast that was their second 3-and-out in the last 34 drives for the offense. That's playing good offensive football right there. So yes, earlier in the season, the offense was definitely the cause. The defense is now being the cause. But we expected the offense to have its moments where it wasn't going to be good. They were so young, first and second year wide receivers and tight ends, except for DeGuara. You just knew that team was going to have some ups and downs as far as the offense goes. But the defense has a lot of veterans on that team and should be handling business, and they're just not. So, Caleb Fisher also says Joe Barry should have been gone since last year. Enough of the losing season. Hallelujah, Caleb. Hallelujah.
Jared McChinney-Kerr also had a comment. He said, as long as Joe Barry's defensive coordinator, this team is going nowhere. Thought experiment. Say Jordan Love ends up being another Hall of Fame quarterback, and the offense, with time and maybe some free agent signings, becomes elite and explosive. You get a 2.0 version of the Dom Capers era, where Aaron Rodgers and the offense did everything possible to win games, but the defense was atrocious. Hell, Joe Barry makes Dom Capers look like a defensive genius.
Yep. I don't know what it is about the defensive coordinators that come to Green Bay, but they just can't teach our guys how to play a zone defense. Other teams can do it. For some reason, whenever they come to Green Bay, they forget how to do it. So,
Well, thank you so much for all the comments. That was actually quite a we had lots and lots of things that people said in that. It was great. But we want to go to some listener feedback as well, outside of just the social media outlets. If you'd like to be a part of our upcoming podcast episodes, you can either record your voice on your phone or computer and email the recording to feedback@PackersFanPodcast.com, or you can call the Packers Fan Podcast voicemail line at +1 920 3PACK-GO. As always, the deadline for your calls is Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Let's go ahead and hear our first voicemail. Recognizable voice.
Well, this is Megan. It's several hours after the game ended, so I've had some time to wind down. It was like, well, we'll start with some positives. I feel like a lot of them happened at the beginning. I mean, there was like a really good drive in the third. There was here are some positives. I was glad Jonesy was back. I actually, like, in the beginning, I was like, since we seem to, like, every other game or not every game have, like, running the ball in the game plan or just not running the ball. We used him so much in the beginning, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be, like, a run-heavy game. This is exactly what we need. These are the games that we do the best in. And then it seemed like throughout the game, they just, like, moved further and further away from that. So that was kind of disappointing. It was fun to see him kind of tearing it up when he could, but let's see. Okay, so we need to give some props to Tucker Kraft. I thought he played really well when he got chances. There were a couple misses, but I feel like some of them were the throws. Love was like hot and cold throughout the game. Like there were some like just fire passes and like really, really good shots on the while he was on the run. Some stick out. Jaden Reed and Malik Heath were some really good ones, but then there were others that were just like off. And yeah, but that is what it is. I was hearing a lot of people hate on Jordan Love, and I like don't think that loss was much at all his fault. I don't know. I do. The defense didn't have the greatest game. Like they had 4 sacks, but I don't know. I felt like Devondre Campbell had a rough game. They kept like passing it right up the middle, and it's like we just kept letting them. I don't know. That was frustrating. And everyone's calling for Joe Barry to be fired yet again. And then I heard something that Matt won't do it because they're friends. I don't necessarily agree with that, but are they friends? I don't know. I don't know. This is not a very positive, optimistic voicemail, but I really hope that we can win out and stuff like that, but kind of like losing a little bit of momentum last week and this week. Like we should have won both of these games. And we I don't know. We totally show like lots of flashes of greatness. A lot of our young guys do. I feel Dontavian Wicks, I thought, played a great game. Like a couple of those, he just was like plowing through while there were like 2, 3, 4 guys hanging onto him, trying to get him down. And he just kept going. And he doesn't seem like a very big guy. So I thought that he played really well. Jaden Reed also did well. I don't know why they weren't really using Dobbs much, but like it seems like they're really focusing on those like 3, 4 young rookie receivers. Our secondary, I thought, could have used some help. Is Jair ever going to play again? It's like, I don't know. It's so hard because I feel like some weeks they're just like on fire, and then other weeks it's like it's a totally different group of people. It's just like there's not a whole lot of consistency, and maybe they just need like a season under their belt together. And then it will look different next year, but who knows? I thought that in the beginning of the game, when we went for it on 4th down and didn't get it and like turned the ball over to them on like the 4 or something like that. And then when Enigbari sacked, like the sack fumble where he recovered the ball was like a relief. I was like, oh, someone said, I think it was one of the reporters said it was like a get out of jail free card. I thought that was funny because it was like a crappy way to end that first drive, which seemed like we were making lots of progress and it was going to it was going to end well. And then, yeah, we kind of had another chance, but that was just luck and I guess good defense. But what else? I don't really have a whole lot else to say. I need to watch some of the press conferences. I know they're going to get a lot of hate, but it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to give them some grace. It's like they're young, rebuilding, but sometimes I think that I can't like hate on Matt because I really do like him. I don't know. This just doesn't seem to be the year. And I have not lost all hope. I'm trying to maintain a healthy dose of realism. But yeah, anyways. All right, I'm going to end this. But I did wear my jersey from the very start of the game. It didn't seem to help. So I hope that we can kind of, learn from it and be better next week at Carolina. There's only a few games left of the season, so we need to cheer loud. I thought the cheering was super loud in the stadium, and that was really awesome to hear. I just wish we could have come away with the win. I was having bad flashbacks to when the Bucs came for the NFC Championship in 2021. It's I hate when they come to Lambeau, but whatever. Anyways, go Pack Go. Still a Packer fan for life. Love the podcast. Green and gold tongue, dead and cold. Wayne, you're missed, but I hope you're having a great vacation. Go Pack Go!
Go Pack Go, indeed. Megan, thank you so much for the voicemail. The thing that I'm not going to say anything that she said bugs me, but there's just this mentality of, better luck next year. I feel like that is the mentality of teams that I am not fans of. You know what I mean? I don't want to look at it as hopefully we... Yeah. I don't want it to be no, next year's going to be our year. I think there's a commercial on TV right now where the guys are all next year's going to be our year. Next year's going to be our year. Everybody says that, right? I don't want to be that team. Obviously we want to rebuild. We want to do better, but I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I do want to say that I didn't have a lot of hope going into this year that we were going to be a playoff contending team. Obviously now I'm sounding like a hypocrite because I'm getting very frustrated with, the team now that they were in playoff contention and everything like that. But when you're a team that, has showed the offensive growth that we were hoping to see, and you have the talent on the defense, and your defense is the one that's actually causing you to lose games in these late stages, especially against teams that you shouldn't be losing to, that's the frustrating part to me. Your offense has shown that it's grown enough to be able to, at least keep you in contentions of games. And yeah, so better luck next year right now is not a great thing in my opinion. If they had lost to Detroit and Kansas City and we were out of playoff contention by then, I would have been okay, better luck next year. But we were in playoff contention. We're still in playoff contention, but it's just now they have to really handle business and hope for some help. So
exactly. And I feel like we're also, we talked about him, but Wicks is not getting enough love.
Man, he's playing so well.
He really is. And but Megan thinks so as well. And where has Dobbs been? I think I remember him catching one pass the entire game.
Yeah, I think there was a second one he got the first pass, I think, and then I think he caught a second one later in the game, but he's not being utilized. You know what? And that might just be by the fact that maybe Dobbs just isn't getting open. He's not, putting himself in positions to make, to get open. Wicks is making fantastic routes to get himself open. He is not a speed guy. Neither is Dobbs. But you saw early on that Dobbs was being used very heavily. That's because Love had, some trust in him. But if you remember, from what I remember, was Dobbs was, covered very well for a lot of the catches that he made. He just made great catches. And it's at some point your guys have to get open, and now your young guys are getting open. And that's why a big reason why we're seeing this offense start to click now too, because your young guys are figuring it out in the NFL. So
right.
Yeah, I think it's every, whoever the hot hand is for receivers are right now. So.
Gotcha. Also, what are your feelings on Matt LaFleur? Because Megan was saying she doesn't want to hate the guy, but
I think Matt LaFleur has shown he can be a very good offensive coach and everything. I have a lot of questions as far as head coaching abilities. I think I've already mentioned this earlier as far as Joe Barry and everything like that. He has some pretty bad time management decisions, in my opinion. I thought the challenge in that game was just a bad challenge. It probably should have been a first down. But I think, that was close enough as it was that they were probably just going to have it stand. You have 1 yard. You should be able to make that 1 yard. If you can't, then that's a problem on you and your team right there. So
good point.
I think, he went 13-3, 13-3, 13-4 with his first 3 years. And people want to say, well, he had Aaron Rodgers. Absolutely. He did. He had Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers also went 8-8 the year before, or 8-9, whatever it was. They didn't have a good year before that. So I think Matt LaFleur has shown he can be a good coach. He just needs to do it, and he has to put the hammer down right now.
Yeah. I know my wife would leave me for him. She thinks he's
a beautiful, beautiful man, okay? One other thing that Megan mentioned I thought was actually a really good point. They moved away from the run a lot. Now, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they didn't play Aaron Jones for pretty much the second and third quarter. Sounds like that was probably by design, just because he's just coming off injury and everything. But if you're going to play a guy, play a guy. That's what I think.
I agree. We got another voicemail, and you can probably guess who it's going to be, but we're going to go ahead and play that for you right now.
Well, there it is. Another loss. I don't even know what to say, but I want to give my raw reaction initially. I'll come back and give another voicemail, I'm sure. But this game just seemed like the players and the coaches really didn't even want to be there. I just don't understand the mentality of taking it slow. I mean, this isn't a quadratic equation. These are young players. Don't overthink it. Just go with your talent, go with your youth, use your energy, and just go, go, go. Now, there's a time and a place for that, but when you're down 14 against a team that is fighting for their playoff life, you don't sit there and try to analyze everything that you're doing or that they're doing. You got to go with your strengths and try to cover up your weaknesses and just roll with it. Like I said, I just don't understand it. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. The big thing that stands out to me is the defense. I think the offense was doing pretty well. I don't think that the offense was going as fast as they should have, but at the end of the day, it's the defense that really gave up everything. And I don't understand this whole mentality of again, keeping Joe Barry. It's obvious, especially after today, after Baker Mayfield just tore this defense up. It's Baker Mayfield. This is his third team. He's a good quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. I mean, obviously, otherwise this wouldn't be his third team. I mean, we beat him last year at Lambeau Field when he was on the Rams, and it's not like we don't know who he is. We played him last year. We know what his capabilities are. Again, Todd Bowles really called a good game plan going into this. It's just extremely frustrating when this is a game that we could have and should have won, just like last week. Especially coming off of two strong wins against the Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. And like I said, I mostly lay the blame at this loss at Joe Barry's feet. The offense, for the most part, really did their part. They were effective. I really wish that they would have stuck with the run game. Not sure what happened with Aaron Jones, because he was being very effective in the first drive and a half. I didn't like how much they used him. I felt like they maybe overused him, and I'm not sure, coming off of an injury, if that's why we didn't see much of him, or if they were trying to play catch-up ball, if that was part of their game plan. But like I said, at the end of the day, the Joe Barry defense just did not execute effectively at all. The only reason, honestly, why we were in the game is because of the turnover on the 2 after LaFleur should have gone for a field goal in the first place. and went for it on fourth and goal. I'm just sick and tired of seeing this prevent soft cover shell defense that Joe Barry likes to call it. Like it's just, keep everything in front of you. Keep everything in front of you. Well, that allows any quarterback in the league to throw underneath and, take these little, 6 to 8 yard chunk plays. And then if you get the ball into the hands of a really good receiver, they can get a lot of, yards after completion. I mean, we saw it all day with Godwin. We saw it with, Rashid White. I mean, they just tore it up, these short passes and then let their playmakers make plays, but enough over crying about spilled milk. Got the Carolina Panthers coming up next week. Hopefully we can win this game. I'm not too sure. I don't know if any of you guys have seen any pictures of the stadium, but I actually had one of the guys that I went to the New York game with. Him and his husband were there, and holy moly, that stadium was empty. Like, I think he said he got his ticket for $4. And imagine going to an NFL game and you only pay $4 for your ticket, and there's nobody there. So basically, you kind of just have your run of the joint. This is going to hopefully be a blowout, but at this point, who knows? There's nothing given, there's nothing gained. Here we go. Go, Pack, go!
Well, thanks for that voicemail there, Dan. I got to be honest. I think that was the saddest go Pack go that Dan's ever done.
I know, right?
It was had a lot of disgust in that go Pack go. And I'm with you there, buddy. I think this was a very awful performance against a team that we should have at least, it should have been a better game. Sometimes it happens when you lose against a team that you shouldn't lose to, but this was just a butt whooping, and it sucks to watch something like that. He brought up again Joe Barry. We're rip off the Band-Aid at this point. I think we've beat that one to a dead horse, but I gotta agree with them right there. The experiment is done. And just like Megan mentioned, Aaron Jones looked very good at the beginning, and then they went away from him. I don't necessarily know if they overused him in that first drive. I'm not on the sidelines and everything. I do. They earlier in the year were still doing that. Like in the second quarter, Jones was absent. Well, unfortunately, when you don't have your second back, it's hard to really, handle business with the run game, and you could see that with the play calling and all that. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention real quick with what he said though is that soft shell coverage obviously, sucks when anybody can just dink and dunk it and everything like that. But that's kind of the point, is to dink and dunk it. But as he mentioned, they threw the ball all over the field on them, and then also just had a bunch of yards after the catch. You can't play that also when you can't tackle. And you saw that multiple times. I've already mentioned David Moore scoring a 53-yard touchdown when really it should have either been just pass a first down or stop third down on the fourth down. So
yeah, and he mentioned how few of the fans are into Carolina. Like, if we don't win this game on fandom alone, that's going to be super embarrassing, because I saw a video of their stadium. Dude, it looked like 10% of the seats were filled. I'm not exaggerating. It looked like there was hardly anybody in that stadium. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, when your team's not very good, I don't necessarily blame them for not being there that much.
But I would go to a game for $4. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that one.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Megan and Dan, for the voicemails. We also got an email. First one comes from Rick Snowdy. He says, I had to feel bad for my wife these last 2 weeks, but next week should make things better. We're going to Charlotte to watch my Carolina Panthers play her Green Bay Packers, along with my brother and his wife. The way Carolina has been playing this season, it should be an easy win. Although they got their second win today, the offense is terrible. Turnovers are their only hope. I will try and share some pictures on game day. Rick from Wisconsin. P.S. Scott, I was working in Whitewater this week and thought about you. Thank you so much, Rick. Man, that's my I call that my hometown. I didn't. I spent the majority of my childhood in Whitewater, and I love that town. So thanks, man.
I know Whitewater is very good at football down there in the Division three land. So
I know nothing about college ball.
Fair
Nothing.
enough.
As always, your calls, emails, comments, and support are so much a part of the Packers Fan Podcast. Thank you. Remember to be part of the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community and be part of the conversation at packerscommunity.com. Check out all the action and join in, especially for our live game chat session. And now it is time to preview next week's game with the Carolina Panthers. Your 6-8 Green Bay Packers are headed to Carolina to face the 2-12 Panthers. Yes, 2-12 Panthers on Christmas Eve day, Sunday, December 24th at 12 noon Central Time. The Green Bay Packers lead the series 11-6. I got a memorable game between these two teams. January 12th, 1997, it was the NFC Championship game. Packers won the game 30-13, advancing them to Super Bowl 31, which they won against the New England Patriots for their third Super Bowl win. Definitely a great matchup there.
Absolutely. I don't remember that game because I was 3 years old at that time.
Oh, my God.
My memorable game was December 17, 2017, where I was at that game in Carolina for which would be our first annual road game. Unfortunately, it was a Green Bay loss, 31-24, which if memory serves me right, Aaron Rodgers made his return from injury for that game. And it wasn't a very good game for most of that, but they were making a furious comeback until Geronimo Allison fumbled to kill any chance at that comeback.
Oh, yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
I also remember it was cold as crap because we were up in the top seats and everything. It was 50 and windy, and we were just we didn't bring any blankets or anything, and we were just freezing.
I'll bet, man. Yeah, you don't expect it to be that cold in Carolina.
No.
I mean, I guess. But anyway, Sunday's weather, speaking of weather, in Carolina should be sunny and 38 degrees Fahrenheit at kickoff. It's about 1 degree Celsius, so pretty chilly. And as David mentioned at the top of the show, I decided to pass the reins over to him and let him give this week's keys to a Packers victory over the Panthers. So, David, hit us up.
Well, I hope I can do just as well as you normally do, but my first strategy is get rid of Joe Barry. Okay. Yeah. While I'm serious, I know that that's not going to happen, as you know, especially after hearing what Matt LaFleur said today. So let me change that up a little bit. Joe Barry needs to stop being Joe Barry at this point. Mm-hmm. He needs to stop thinking about what would Joe Barry do and what would a good defensive coordinator do. Know your personnel and know the team you're playing right now. You have to get pressure on Bryce Young. He's a young quarterback who does not have a good offensive line in front of him. That offense is averaging a whopping 270 yards per game, and 165 of those are coming through the air. That offensive line has also given up over 54 plus sacks, fourth worst in the NFL. You played one bad offensive line in the New York Giants and could get a sack on them. You need to do it against this team, and don't make them look like studs like you did Danny DeVito Jr. Okay.
Is that 54 sacks this season?
54 sacks this season.
That is insane.
Oh, New York has like 78 sacks or something like that.
Good Lord. Wow.
Yeah. Number 2, if Aaron Jones plays, use him. He had 8 carries for something like 42 yards on the first drive. He then had 5 carries the rest of the game for 11-ish. Yep. If he's not healthy, don't play him. There's no reason to just play a guy for a short amount of time. If you're going to have him, use him. Don't be using pitch counts. Allow your players to get into rhythms and have a game plan for those players. And Eric Stokes is another one where he kind of disappeared for a time as well.
Yeah, I had high hopes for him for sure.
I thought he actually did really well coming back from injury. But that's for a different day, I guess. Strategy number 3, Jordan Love, remember your mechanics, and timing is key. For 5 weeks, you played excellent football, with the key change being you got your footwork right. Last game, and especially early on in this game, you went back to off balance and not planting that foot and driving the ball. It's why on 4th and 2, you threw that ball way to the outside to Reed, because your foot was off balance. Your footwork should come natural to you and shouldn't be something that you have to think about every single time. Also, your timing needs to be crisper. it's good to take checkdowns, but if you're going to take a check down, you need to put the ball at the right time in the player's hands so they can go make a play. That great touchdown to Jaden Reed was, on 3rd and 14 was started to get to 3rd and 14 by 2 bad timings on checkdowns where Patrick Taylor had zero room to make any sort of play on that. You need to make sure that you get that ball out much quicker and let your guys go make plays. You should be able to throw all over this defense. Continue to prove you are the guy of the future in Green Bay.
Nicely done, sir. Showing me up. I think you're vying for my spot over here on PFP. Nice job, man. I like it.
You said it, not me.
Our 2023 season wager of fun. Not much has changed this week because everybody picked Green Bay to win. So I picked 27-24. Differential doesn't matter. Wayne picked 24-20 Green Bay. Differential doesn't matter because the final score was 34-20 in favor of the Buccaneers. And in fact, I'm looking at here, I don't think anybody else picked the Tampa Bay to win. So the standings are still the same. Wayne has 3 wins against me. I've got 6 wins against him. And the listener leaders, David, you are tied in first place with Dan Dyler and Jay Walters. So you guys each have 3 wins. And then in second place, Brett Connor still has 1 win. So with this game against Carolina, in Carolina, what do you think, man? What's your prediction?
I know I've been quite the pessimist this episode here, and I apologize for those that wanted to hear a little bit more positivity. But here's some positivity for you. I think Green Bay is going to win this game 31-17.
There you go, man. That's even more positive than Wayne's because Wayne said Green Bay 18, Carolina 17. I kept it close as well with Green Bay 21-20. But I thought real long and hard about picking Carolina for this one, but I just can't do it. Not with a team with 2 wins. I just can't. I can't do it. So we also got some PFP listener picks for Week 16. Josh Steinman says there will be more points scored than fans in the stands. Green Bay 35, Carolina 12. That was pretty funny. Jay Walters also predicts a Green Bay win 24-12. Rick Snowdy, Green Bay 20, Carolina 6. And Brett Connor, Green Bay 24 and Carolina 10. So make sure you get those picks in, guys, before the end of the week. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Here are the David, actually, why don't you go ahead and take the standings right now for the NFC North?
Yeah, the NFC North standings. In first place is the Detroit Lions at 10-4, who had a really big win against Denver this week, really solidifying that spot in first place. The Vikings, 7-7, at second place. They lost in a heartbreaker to Cincinnati. Thank you, Cincinnati. Your Green Bay Packers are 6-8 at the number 3 spot in the division, and the Bears still finding ways to lose games when they're winning at the end at 5-9. So that is your NFC North.
There you go. So I was looking around for other things happening in the NFL. Nothing really grabbed my attention, but I did want to ask you, assuming that it's not the Packers in the Super Bowl, who are your picks for making the Super Bowl this year, David? Like who you think's going to make it, and alternately, who would you like to see? Like who would be your wish list in the Super Bowl? I'm sorry, I can't say that. In the big game, if it's not the Packers.
You can't say Super Bowl now?
Apparently, it's we're not supposed to.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So my picks to make it into the big game is San Francisco, who is playing excellent football right now. They've beaten up on the Eagles and the Cowboys, who, have been playing pretty good football. The Cowboys just got tripped up by the Bills this past week, but still playing pretty good football. And then on the AFC side, I could pick the Baltimore Ravens, but they just have never really proven to me with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback as someone who can get it done in the playoffs. And they just lost their stud undrafted rookie running back to an ACL injury, which is at least the second Ravens player, along with J.K. Dobbins, to get a bad leg injury this year. So this one's really tough because you got 4 really good teams playing right now. I'm I'm going to pick the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to say the Miami Dolphins have the firepower to do it this year.
Ooh.
It's going to be a tough road for them, but I think they can do it. Obviously, the Chiefs, I think, can always figure it out in the playoffs, but they're just not playing as great a football right now. So
Interesting.
If I was to pick, though, who I would want to make it in, of the teams that I think is going to be in the playoffs and have a legitimate shot to make it, I'd pick Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And I would probably pick Jacksonville. I'd like to see Jacksonville in there.
There you go. I'm with you on the 49ers. I think that it's a no-brainer pick for the NFC. They've looked playoff and Super Bowl ready in the first half of this season. They just look outstanding. In terms of the AFC, I would probably say the Chiefs, just because I feel like that's the NFL script at this point. He's the guy in all the all the State Farm ads, right? But if it were what I wanted, and this is going to sound crazy coming from a Packers fan in the NFC North, but I would really like to see the Lions go. It's time, and I would like to see it be against the Dolphins. I like that's just like my wish list, my dream list Super Bowl matchup for this year. So
I think the Lions to me are like, little brother is finally able to contend with big brother in the division and everything, and you just got to root for him now.
I know, right? And I'm not one of those that's never going to root for anybody in my division. You know what I mean? Except for the Bears. I'm sorry. The only time I'm ever going to root for the Bears is when it helps the Packers. But
yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, we're wrapping up here towards the end, but I want to remind you before we get out of here of my other podcast, The Gaming Outsider. We release a new episode every week, and this week was no different. And Wednesday, we're releasing the latest, where we're talking about story content in game that is hidden behind some kind of wall, whether it be a difficult gameplay wall or money reasons or some other kind of barrier that keeps you from seeing important story beats. It's a really interesting conversation. You'll also hear CB's impressions of a game called Power Wash Simulator VR.
Yeah.
I'm not making that up. You get to play power. You get to man a power washer in virtual reality, and he just absolutely raves about it. So be sure to check that out. You can hear my show at the same places you listen to this one, and you can find our website at thegamingoutsider.com.
You liked Power Wash Simulator, didn't you? But not in VR?
I haven't played it in VR. He's told me that I have to play it in VR, so I'm probably going to have to check that out. But he just raved about it. Seriously, he just absolutely loved that game. It is a very relaxing, satisfying game to play, especially if you've ever power washed for real. It's one of my favorite chores to do because it's just so satisfying. But you can do it in VR. There you go. Thanks so much for giving back to your Packers Fan Podcast via Patreon. We really do appreciate it. And if you'd like to join in or check out other ways to support the PFP, all the details are at PackersFanPodcast.com/give back. I want to give a special shout out to Jay Walters at our AR12 level patron. Go Pack Go, and thank you. Dan Dyler, thank you, and Go Pack Go for supporting the PFP at the Jordan Love level.
Yeah, and how about those Brett Favre level Patreon supporters? We have Megan, we have Scott Boards, we've got Miguel Ramirez from the Opposites Attract podcast, and we've got Colm Nolan from Ireland. And thank you and Go Pack Goes to the Lambeau level patrons, Brett Connor, Joe Christensen, and Hank Davis from the TPE network. Please check out all the details at PackersFanPodcast.com/giveback. The Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast is not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. Please tell your friends about the Packers Fan Podcast, and thank you.
You can also follow us on Twitter at PackersFanPod. David, do you have a Twitter handle?
I do. I think it is at DNEWM013, if I'm not mistaken. I don't go out on it too much, so.
I love that you're like, I think my handle is this.
Yeah.
I think my handle is this. I'm at GoCastScott, and Wayne is at Wayne Henderson. David, it has been a pleasure chatting with you, man. Thank you so much for filling in for Wayne this week. I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you asking me to come on. Again, I apologize for the negativity this week. I just am kind of a ticked off Packers fan. I hope you still enjoyed listening to us talk about it today.
I don't think you're the only ticked off Packers fan right now, man.
That's fair.
I mean, you are a doctor, so you are a therapist, right? Come on.
Sure. Yeah.
Dad jokes for the win?
Oh,
yes,
my
no?
gosh.
No. All right. Well, on that note, to take us out to Carolina, here's community members Joe Christensen, Megan, and Dan Dollar with their Go Pack Go outro.
Go, Pack, go!
Go, Pack, go!
Go, 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 Pack, go!